This is Cutting Down the Nets for Saturday, February 18th. 142 games on the schedule for this Saturday. We are just over 3 weeks away from Selection Sunday, the absolute best time of the year. This process is very important on a day like this because Paddy has identified, 43 plays with at least 3 points of value. So I run the recent efficiency model. I then have to deal with a pool of 40 plus games, and I am finding lots of reasons to pass on lots of games. So I'm trying to narrow it down to the best of the best, and then ultimately make some wagers after that. To get started, I think we have a Paddy record breaker for mid-February. Now you'll see numbers like this in late November when there's only been a few games played and things like that. But we have 11.7 points of value as Howard goes to Coppin State. Why is that? Well, let me deflate your balloon immediately. So here's what's really happening. Recent efficiencies have Howard's adjusted offense around 105 and adjusted defense around 105. Literally average. That's pretty much the national average at this point. But this is a real Paddy number. The reason it's occurring is Coppin State is rated as a 91 adjusted offense and a 118 adjusted defense, which is far below their season-long number. But yeah, they've earned it. Really stinky profile the last 5 to 15 games. And then Howard's had a little bit of 3-point offensive luck, but geez, 11.7. So before you empty your clip on this game, I assure you that when numbers are this big in terms of value, it does not hit at any higher rate than anything else. I still give this a 55% chance of hitting. So what's happening here is if Coppin State played an average team, I would have an average team by 18 points over Coppin State. That's how bad it is. So if you're curious, if they played Baylor or Alabama, Paddy would honestly make that minus 43, minus 47, something like that. That's how obscene the number is right now against Coppin State. So will I play Howard? Yeah, probably for the brand, but yeah, I assure you, please, I'm a straight unit better. I encourage you to do the same. Game number 2, Southern against Grambling State. Paddy median closer to 2 possessions. Paddy around 3. Shot qualities are right in line with the point spread. So you'll see this as a theme tonight. Also driven by recent 3-point performance. Like most games from this conference, there'll be turnovers on both sides. I do see an offensive rebound advantage for Grambling and a major free throw rate edge. Doesn't mean they'll make their free throws, but it does see lots of fouling in favor of Grambling as well. So hopefully some free buckets. Now we've got a whole slew of orange. I'll kind of fly through these. Again, when you have this many games identifying as a value, I want to poke holes in them. And if I can't, those are good wagers. So Pacific LMU. LMU just lost by 43, so that's obviously going to drag their number down. That's why their Paddy's at 3, but 7.3 for a median, which doesn't account for that most recent game as much, given it's a median and not an average. Shot quality right around 6, lines at 9. So this is there's some value there, even though the Paddy number has really been affected by the game against Gonzaga. But let's just call it, let's say Paddy was supposed to be 7, maybe 6. You're still looking at 3.5 points of value. So it's okay. I don't know the last time I won a Pacific bet, though. Big OR edge for LMU, and then obviously you got to deal with LMU's best player, too. All right, Pitt, Vatek. SQ and the spread are right in line, right around 4 to 5 to 6 points. Paddy favors Pittsburgh here, but opponents have made 36 of the last 76 3-pointers versus Virginia Tech. If that was more like 30% instead of 50%, their adjusted defense would be better. This would make the Paddy and the Paddy median far different. So yeah, a little bit of bad 3-point luck from Virginia Tech. They also have dealt with injuries in the last month and a half and seem to be at full strength right now. So that's why that one is orange. North Florida at Austin Peay. Here we have about 9 to 11. Shot quality around 5, usually something pretty good. But this first game went to OT, and North Florida, our buddy Matty Driscoll from the Let's Go meme, they've made 30 of their last 53 3-pointers, so that's inflating their numbers as well. Again, this is a common theme. Aggies at Missouri. Man, I love to bet the Aggies, don't I? Here we have Paddy at 5 and Paddy median at 2.5. Here's why this game is orange. Situation favors Missouri big time. So anytime you have a team getting waxed like Missouri did, and then they return home, that's typically a good situational spot. So the situation is good enough here that would scare me away. Normally, Texas A&M did win this first meeting by 18, so there's a little revenge factor there. But this is a massive offensive rebound edge for Texas A&M. There's a big turnover edge for Mizzou. And as I've mentioned on previous programs, Texas A&M funnels shots to the outside. That's great against the LSUs and the Arkansas that can't shoot. Missouri can shoot. So, yeah, not a schematic edge like typical when Texas A&M is forcing the outside shots. That's why that one is orange. Edwardsville against Tennessee State in the OVC. Paddy around 5 or 6. Shot quality within a possession. And currently we have a pick'em. Once again, this seems a little bit driven by 3-point luck on both sides. A theme today. But hey, it's my job to go through those and kind of identify like why this occurs. It's very similar to like a NFL air yards model where it's like, well, yeah, I have to review the data and say like, well, yeah, that's because that player was targeted on 2 Hail Marys in the last 2 games. So that added, 120 air yards to the model there. Bucknell, Boston, I'm going to pass on that just due to the differences between shot quality, which has Boston by 3 possessions, and Paddy, which has Bucknell in a close one. Upstate and High Point. High Points look bad for a while. I think I've bet against them a number of times. TO edge here for Upstate, OR edge for High Point, free throw edge for High Point. It's close, but with that median so high, I'm kind of interested in that. So if there's a color between yellow and orange, a light orange, that's probably where that one would be. LMU showed as a fade earlier. Now we have Gonzaga. Shocker. But that's what happens when your most recent game was a 143.5 adjusted offense. I have seen higher, but it's tough to do. And a 77.7 adjusted defense. The median is right there too, though. So even if you just looked at a midpoint that included that game, it's still heavy Gonzaga. Reason being, Gonzaga is above a 124 adjusted offense in 7 of the last 9. If you look at their offensive performances for the year, like it's absurd. However, laying 16.5 on the road in a conference game, not something I typically like to do. Next up is Poly, Cal State Fullerton. Fullerton won the first game by 29 in a 57 possession game. That is very, very difficult to do. It's basically what Gonzaga did to LMU on a much slower paced game. So big turnover edge here for CSF. But to cover 10 in a game that has less than 60 possessions, you really have to, you probably have to be scoring at like a 1.1 point per possession clip, and your opponent has to be at like 0.9. It's just a big ask for a team that isn't necessarily dominant. So that's why that one is orange. I do like this La Tech matchup here. You have shot quality in that 8 to 9 range, Paddy in the 6 to 8 range, and it's a pick'em. So I have looked for injuries for this game. Nothing like really stands out. So I do like the La Tech side. Lehigh against American. American is bad at 2 things, protecting the ball and limiting offensive rebounds. Unfortunately, Lehigh, not a team that forces a lot of turnovers, nor is a great offensive rebounding team. So they can't really dominate those American weaknesses like other teams could. But with shot quality having Lehigh favored, and Paddy having Lehigh favored 5 points seems like a good spot for me. Utah Valley, Seattle. So if you've been deep in the college basketball world, you know that Seattle had an absurd 3-point defensive percentage. And eventually the pendulum swung and regression hit them like a ton of bricks. They lost a few games in a row, and they even got blown out a number of times. But now, no one can miss a shot against Seattle. So the truth is probably in the middle. I'm a little concerned that the pendulum is about to swing back and kind of normalize a bit. But recent play has Utah Valley comfortably ahead by 2 to 3 possessions. Shot quality sees it on the other side. So I'm kind of on the fence with that one. You kind of have to retrain your brain. It's like, oh, Seattle's a fade because they've been lucky. But that luck has stopped, and maybe it's actually gone too far. LaSalle and George Mason, both these teams are running a little hot, as I note here. So if you look at their profiles, like they're shooting above expectation, but both sides are. So not much stands out for me. And when I look at the 4 factors of effective field goal, turnover, offensive rebounds, and free throw rate, everything seems pretty neutral to me. Cajuns at James Madison, again, pretty even on paper. Madison's laying the home court 3. Even with the home court 3, I like the Cajun side. Shot quality's there. ULL just has a higher ceiling, but in these games with 2 good teams, man, it's tough to win road games this year. I'm using the highest home court edge I've used, and yeah, it's just something to consider. The next 2 are gray, just due to the median being so close to the spread that it kind of eats away at the value that was there. Hofstra won the first game by 21 against Stony Brook, but shot quality has this under 2 possessions, which is kind of weird. So I'm going to look into that a little bit more, as Paddy likes it by 15-17. They won the first one by 21. Like, it's kind of right in line, but shot quality highly disagrees with this. Hofstra has played well of late from 3-point, and there's some pace concerns there. It's tough to lay 12.5 in a slow-paced game. Duquesne, they get it done with turnovers and offensive rebounds, which are tough against St. Louis. They protect the ball, and they limit offensive rebounds. That's why that one is orange. Just doesn't seem like the environment for Duquesne to perform at their median, which is what I'm trying to predict. Georgia-Bama, I don't like to lay 19 points in a conference game, but Bama has won 5 SEC games by 21 plus this year, which is absurd. Baylor, Kansas. Oh, the Cocaine Bears, baby. They have been playing very well offensively, but their defense is a cut below previous years. They did get Everyday John back a few games ago. Look, Baylor's trending really, really strong right now. If that defense clicks, which doesn't look like that's going to happen, I really see a ceiling for Baylor in the dance. So here, traveling on the road, getting 4.5 is probably enough for me. Pass on Idaho State, Sacramento State for reasons similar to the other games. Southern Miss, I typically like to fade really gaudy records that probably haven't deserved those records. I think the shot quality record for Southern Miss is far lower than their actual record, but this is a dangerous spot. They just got embarrassed. They now return home after that beatdown, so that's usually a focus spot for good teams like Southern Miss. I think they're a good team. I think they're not as good as their record. But Southern Miss kind of makes it with forcing turnovers, and Georgia Southern can protect the ball. It's a tricky spot, a really tricky spot, and that matters. So, not sure there. Cal State Northridge, UC San Diego, very slow pace. I don't see enough edges to want to lay 2 possessions. The median's close to 2 possessions. It's a pass for me. Toledo, a lot of road points. SQ is very close to the spread, so it's like, it's fine. Median's a little lower. Like, it's just not good enough for me on a 142-game schedule. Hometown team, the Tommies, St. Thomas. Recent play has Paddy number around 11.5, but the median is right in line Shot quality is even a bit lower, so that's a easy like sit out for me. Not a fan of Utah or ASU at the moment, so yeah, I just don't see enough there. ASU getting the home court 3, I don't know, kind of gross. UT Arlington, major turnover concerns here, but they can force them as well. Will be fouls on both sides as well. This is probably a game of runs, so it might be a better live betting opportunity. Currently, I'd favor the Arlington side, but I would want more points. UMBC at New Hampshire. Look at New Hampshire's profile. They've had some duds lately and still showing as a Paddy play. So that's kind of interesting. But I think UMBC is like 17-11. New Hampshire's like 11-13, roughly. I'm just kind of guessing. So I would expect that number to grow given New Hampshire's recent performances and the record disparity there. And yeah, would love to grab like more than a possession if it got high enough there. You can kind of see these orange games here. North Dakota at UMKC is interesting. The Paddy median is much higher than the Paddy score. Shot quality has it less than a possession. So yeah, it's close for me. I don't see any matchup edges though, so it's not a huge deal. Stetson and Gulf Coast just played 2 days ago, so that's kind of weird. Those back-to-backs reminds me of the COVID days. Norfolk actually lost to Morgan State earlier, but they have some edges here. And I think in that first game, Morgan went like 12 of 26, and Norfolk went like 0 for 13 from 3, roughly. So that obviously factored into that. So I'm curious if that number comes down. Long Beach State, fastest team in the country. Hawaii, 310th in pace. So Long Beach gets in transition 43% of the time. Hawaii has a 25% transition defense. But that's in a conference where no one runs. So, yeah, I don't know. I tried that angle with Riverside, Long Beach and Riverside, and gosh, Beach just can't make a shot. They must be in transition. Must. So if that's going to be limited at all, it's just tough sledding for Hawaii. Queens at Kennesaw State. This is a weird spot for Kennesaw State after the big win for the program against Liberty. So that's probably a pass for me, given all that information. So a few more down here. I'll just kind of note Tarleton State. I just had this really close. I was hoping this would be a KenPom number of 4, but it opened at less than a possession. So I wanted to move quick. There's a lot of games. This spreadsheet's in the description of this video. And yeah, we're going to keep her under 20 minutes. Got a few bets out there right now. Not impressed with Loyola Chicago, who apparently can turn the ball over against teams that typically don't apply any pressure, and they are not stopping Dayton at all. We'll see if Penn can hold on, and then we need a little run from Brown. Overall, it's been a fun year. Thanks for stopping by this Saturday. We'll see you Sunday for Cutting Down the Nets.